Welcome back to the podcast. I hope all my listeners are having an amazing day today. We are back on the podcast that helps proud Jews promote their personal brands. I'm David Cobby, and I have another awesome episode in store for all of you. As a reminder, I'd love if you could all subscribe, give me a rating, write a review. And if you haven't done so already, please make sure you are following at Schmoozing Time on TikTok and Instagram to stay up to date on new episodes. On today's episode, we're going to talk about every Jew's favorite topic, food. And I'm not just talking about any food, but kosher food. I know in previous episodes, we've kind of talked a lot about food, but I am going to dedicate an entire episode just for kosher food. As an expert in the kosher food industry, this individual has visited over hundreds of kosher restaurants around the United States and was one of the pioneers of kosher food vlogging. He also dabbles in, making kosher lamb bacon and is the host of show Trippin' Kosher. Please welcome my inaugural Minnesota Jew guest to the show, Chaim C.W. Silverberg. Chaim, how are we doing today?
Super duper, super. I'm your first original fit Minnesotan. That's very exciting.
Yep.
Very exciting.
We love Minnesotans on this podcast, and if I haven't said so already, I'm from Minnesota.
Me too.
Chaim, do you prefer to go by Chaim or CW?
Well, it's funny because those who know me in real life can call me Chaim,
Okay.
because that's what I grew up as. But professionally on the televisions,
Okay.
I go by CW.
Okay.
My first name is just the letter C. I don't know why, but my middle name is William. So CW Silverberg. I like to introduce myself as CW Silverberg Chaim for short.
Got it. I like the nickname. I feel like it's very easy to turn into. Do people call you like C-Dub? Is that a thing? Or
Yeah, C-Dubs.
Okay.
C-Dubs. I'm professionally known as C-Dubs.
Okay. You know what? You are now known. I'm gonna call you C-Dub for the rest of this episode. Hold me to it if I forget, because I feel like that's an amazing nickname.
Well, it's I lean into it. I don't know why my parents named me that, but I lean into it hard.
Listen,
Yeah.
you have some great parents. Like if C-Dub and I go way back. Our families are family friends from Minnesota, and the entire Minnesota Jewish community knows everybody. But C-Dub and I go way back. Our families, have had Shabbat dinners together, grew up together. So very excited and very fortunate to have him on the episode today.
Well, I'm excited because now I know a guy.
Yes,
It's good.
yes,
It's good.
Exactly. So here's how we do things around here. First thing we do is we go down what I like to call our Jewish geography profile. So rapid fire questions. We're going to start with, where is your hometown? Then we're going to go into your high school yeshiva. Then I'm going to ask you 3 things you must eat during Pesach to survive. And then your favorite part about being a Jew. So just giving you these ahead of time because I want these to be, 30-second to a minute answers. So let's start. Once you're ready, let's start with your hometown. So C-Dub, where are we from?
We are from the SLP, baby, St. Louis Park,
Yes.
Minnesota, which,
Yes.
if you know it, it was called St. Jewish Park.
Yes, I was literally just about to say that.
It's where all the Jews somehow ended up because we weren't allowed to live anywhere else, apparently. So they all ended up in the suburbs in this great place called St. Louis Park. There are thousands of Jews in St. Louis Park, and my family has been there for like 100 plus years. So I guess hundreds of those are my cousins. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. He's by the way, C-Dub is related to every single person in the Minneapolis Jewish community. Not me, but like everybody else. Like,
Well,
is-
we're pretend cousins. I spent plenty of time in your grandparents' house. So like,
There you go.
There you go.
There you go. That counts for something. All right. Where'd you go to high school?
So that gets a little tricky because, we grew up a certain kind of level of religious spectrum. Minnesota is, I always felt was special, especially St. Louis Park, as being like this egalitarian float when it came to, how religious you were or not. Everybody was Jewish. We all went to school together. My friends kept kosher snacks in their house for me, so, we understood that there was a balance of religious, non-religious. And then when I went to yeshiva, I went to a couple. So I started in one in Detroit, which was wonderful, but it was a very, very religious joint, and I was not really interested
Okay.
at the time. And I went on a certain kind of Raumspringa. Do you
I
know what
I
that
actually
means?
don't know what that means. We have another word of the day, guys. Explain what that means.
Word of the day,
Rumspringa.
Rumspringa. So when Amish kids come of age, they are allowed to go off the reservation for a little bit and do what they want, and then they can return if they want. Not necessarily really offered in Orthodox society, but I took it anyways. And I ended up going to a lot of yeshivas because I was there was something called a teen at risk, which was a religious youth who was at risk of becoming an irreligious youth. And I played that game for a long time, but I had a great time. I spent some time in Detroit, spent time in Muncie, ended up spending a lot of time in upstate New York at a place called T-Uni that was really instrumental in bringing me back to kind of just a happy, healthy teenager per se. And then bounced around other yeshivas, did Israel, did some other things. And,
You know,
that's pretty much it.
that
Yeah,
I
a lot of
mean,
yeshivas.
that sounds like an awesome opportunity. I know you bounced around everywhere, but at least you got
Yeah,
to see.
not for my parents, but for
There
me,
you go.
yeah, it was
You
great.
got to
Yeah.
experience upstate New York, Detroit, like places that people normally wouldn't be able to see in high school, right?
I got to experience well, I think because there wasn't a religious high school in St. Louis
Mhm.
Park, so there's this kind of idea that a certain part of the religious group is always going to send them to yeshivas, to all-boys schools, to religious
Right.
schools. So, you had your options, and they were in other
Right.
cities, so it was kind of a rite of passage for a ninth grader. You got to kind of dip
Right.
out of the community a little bit and get to explore, and whereas most people took it gently, I did not. I abused the
Hey, listen,
privilege.
it's all good. So going back to our not so rapid fire questions, as you can see, a growing theme is that I've tried to ask these rapid fire questions, and of course, we're Jews. We love to schmooze, we love to talk, and they turn into 3 4 minute answers. But you know what? That's perfectly okay because that's kind of the point of this. Name three things that you must eat on Pesach to survive. I know it's a tough question because, like, not a lot of options, but name three things.
There's a couple things. So 3 things right away. Hand shmura
Oh,
matzah, not the square kind.
ooh.
Hand shmura matzah, but it's gotta be
Okay.
toasted. This is like nobody
Okay.
knows this. The real trick is if you have hand shmura matzah and it's
Mhm.
hot, it's in the oven, it's in the warmer, whatever, it is
Okay.
delicious. Like, it tastes great. Number 2, I love me some horseradish. Like, I love the horseradish part. That Hill sandwich is one of my favorite things. I don't know, I don't eat it the rest of the year. Number 3, at the Seder, I don't know, I think it's more of a European tradition, but there's an egg in salt
Mhm.
water, which I don't know if everybody does this, but you take a hard-boiled egg and you pour the salt water
Yep.
into the egg and you smash it up. And I'm not a yolk
Okay.
guy, but with the hot shmura matzah and this kind of like hot, salty, like eggy
Mhm.
smush, so good. I'm gonna add a 4th because I think I'm gonna do it this year. I always like to try to make some sort of condiments that aren't necessarily available for Passover, but are totally Passover related, like chimichurri works for Passover, things like that. I think this year I'm going to work on a Passover chili crisp.
Wow.
I think that's going to be the
Wow.
bomb.
That
Yeah.
that sounds amazing.
That's,
So, Cito, just so you
mhm.
know, I've never heard somebody so enthusiastic and so quick to answer a question about Pesach food. Do you like thoroughly enjoy food that's kosher for Passover, or you just know your stuff because like you're the kosher food guy?
I am a professional cook also,
Okay.
so like people don't need to know that. No, see, to me, Pesach is not. It's that's not about the
Okay.
restrictions. There are things you can't eat for
Right.
sure, but you are still hanging out with your
Right.
family, and you're having 17 meals over the course of 4 days. So the food's always going to be good. Listen, a ribeye roast is delicious and kosher
There
for
you go. There
Passover,
you go.
right? You put some horseradish on top of that. That's pretty darn classic. I think a lot of people for a long time were worried about limitations and they can only eat potatoes and whatnot, but you can get pretty darn creative with potatoes
You
nowadays.
can.
And we live in this alternate universe where everything is gluten free and like 99% of those things good to go for Passover. So, we live in the future, man, the golden age of Passover
Yes, yes.
foods.
That you know what? You're absolutely right. I think times have definitely changed since I was a kid, and I was eating just matzah
Yeah.
and cream cheese and matzah pizza. Not saying that any of those things aren't horrible, but me personally, I am super anti like Pesach food. It's
Oh, I'm with you because there was a time when it wasn't that easy. When it was just square matzah and cream cheese, you're 100% correct. There's only so much of that you can eat, and you're just like, I'm starving. I just want something else. Matzo pizza is good though. Come on.
Matzah pizza is phenomenal. So, C-Dub, I have a feeling I know the answer to this question, but what is your favorite part about being a proud Jew?
I think it's the universal connection.
Okay.
Especially now in the past, couple months, given what's happening in the world, we are ever more aware of how Jewish we actually are. Even those who are very little to no affiliation very much know that they're Jewish now.
Right.
And that like universal connection, that being like, hey, we have the same words in all the siddur, in all the sitters,
Yep. Yep.
same things being said for thousands of years, the same traditions we all share. It's a universal connection. It's just knowing a guy, and that to me has always been the favorite part. Like I can go anywhere in this country,
Mhm.
to any like major metropolis, and know somebody that I can call up and be like, hey, I'm staying at your house.
Yep. Yep. That is I think that's a very good way to put it. Like the bond in the Jewish community. And I think even before, obviously October 7th, I think strengthened the bond. But
Well, look at us. We're Minnesota Jews. It's a very
yes,
specific flavor. Like Jews
yes,
in New York, there's a lot of Jews in New York, so maybe
yes.
they get diluted. But like everybody knows a Minnesota Jew.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No,
Everybody knows at least one. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I would say before coming to Maryland, I thought like, nobody really knew what Minnesota Jews are, but there's just been so many encounters where I've met somebody that knows somebody from Minnesota, and it's so odd because you think the Minnesota Jewish community is so small and so tight knit that like we wouldn't really know anybody outside of the Jewish community, but like we're kind of in the diaspora, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, so I think we're kind of like a special corner pocket. That's kind of why I travel and tell these stories, is because we understood this growing up, that there was something special to being a Jew in Minnesota. It's just as special as being a Jew anywhere else, but a
Right,
Jew in Minnesota is a much smaller, a much smaller, target base. So it's
right,
more important maybe, or maybe more significant maybe, because we're a smaller data set, but that's
right.
always been what's so special about us.
We definitely are very strong, small, again, tight knit community. I can't even stress this enough. It's really, and I don't think we can see that, and I can even put into words how powerful and strong our Jewish community is. And this is like not to like flex on other Jewish communities, but we're simply
Yeah.
we're simply just we have, I think it's the combination of being Minnesota nice and being Jewish. I feel like that's something that's very
Oh, they
powerful.
work they work so well together, right? Like,
Yes.
you wanna talk about this concept of tikkun olam, just being like
Yes.
a tikkun olam gangsters, as we call it. Heal the
Tikkun-
world, be a good person. Minnesota, everybody is like a tikkun olam gangster. It's the nicest
yes.
place in the country, and everybody looks out for each other, and everybody is friendly. So you put that together with, the social continuity of synagogues and Shabbases and holidays, and everybody is just aware, whether you're Jewish or non-Jewish. If you're in our neighborhood, like, like the Jewish holidays, you know what's up, everybody has a great time. Everybody checks out sukkahs in the winter, and the sukkahs, they all, it's just part of the feel,
It
the
is.
fabric.
Oh my god, it is just amazing that the vibe in St. Louis Park, like, I mean, you see people walking to shul together, like they're migrating like a flock, and
Yeah.
it's really amazing to see, and I think from like a outsider perspective, and talking to my friends from high school, they're just like, whoa, like this is crazy to see that you are literally going over. I think the concept of going back to what you were saying about sleeping over at somebody's house, like I've had people stay at my house from outside of the Jewish community in St. Louis Park. So, Minnetonka, shout out Minnetonka Jewish community, by the way.
Yeah,
That's a,
Minnetonka.
that's a, that's another that's another big one that I feel like is becoming part of becoming part of
Minnetonka's blowing up. Minnetonka's blowing up. Yeah, Chabad is throwing down hard in Minnetonka.
Chabad is throwing down hard in Minnetonka. I mean, there are a lot of Jews that have lived out there forever, and maybe they moved from St. Louis Park out there, but like they're also a very strong Jewish community, and thankfully I have several friends that are in that community, and they'll just come to my house and say at Shabbat. Like it's nothing crazy. I just feel like that concept of being so welcoming and I know I already covered this, but the concept of being so welcoming and Minnesota nice paired with being Jewish is just like it's amazing. Like and
The ideals all work.
it
They
is
all work together. There's nothing wrong with being nice, and I think part of being Jewish is we're supposed to be nice. So yeah, 100%.
why don't you talk a little bit about what are kind of like the advantages and disadvantages of living in the bigger Jewish communities, I would say.
So there's a lot of advantages to living in a larger Jewish community. You have restaurants, you have infrastructure, you have choices of schools, you have choices of shoals, you have a lot of things to choose from. What I think was really special about growing up in Minneapolis is we did not have a lot of things to choose from, and it made us really aware of how special things were. We had one pizza place, that I was growing up with called Old City Cafe, and it was like the best pizza I ever had because that was the old pizza place. And that's special. Like, I don't have to like deal with like this idea of that's better, this is better. It's all better because it's the only one. It's kind of what we've been trying to do with the Tripping Kosher is hold to that ideal. We went to every religious community in America that had at least 3 kosher outlets to highlight the fact that you can be a Jew that's not from New York. You could be a kosher keeping Jew from, Scottsville, Arizona. You could be a kosher keeping Jew in Iowa. And these are the storylines because when you're a kosher keeping Jew or you're just an affiliated Jew or a Jew, you're aware of the larger part of that community. If you're in a Jewish community, you're going to have a school, you're going to have a synagogue, you're going to have some sort of food thing. You're going to have infrastructure that only attracts more Jews who want to be part of that infrastructure. And I think that's really what's so special is that like we get to understand the unique quality of being a Jew in America. Whereas like if you're a Jew in New York, you're 1 in a million or 1 in 2.4 million. Whereas if you're a Jew in Minnesota, you're 1 in
Yeah,
30.
we're very far
8,000
and
maybe.
few, and I think to kind of personify what C-Dub means by literally having one kosher pizza restaurant is we would get. I don't know if this happened back when you were a kid, but we would get when I was growing up, we'd get shipments of kosher cheese from like Wisconsin or Chicago or somewhere, and it'd be like this huge event, like. Oh my goodness, Muckle has the new kosher cheese. Like, let's go buy it. And
That's
it's like,
right.
it was the biggest deal in the world. Like, I think to your point, like we really appreciate having the sense of a kosher restaurant. And I think a lot of people take it for granted. I mean, for me, I know for a fact, like I have a Trader Joe's down the street from me that has kosher meat. And like, thank God, like when I got here, it didn't exist. But like now I appreciate it so much because in Minnesota, it's so hard to find kosher food just because there's not enough demand for it. Like now, thankfully, we have, I think, I want to say 2 or 3 kosher restaurants. So still,
Yeah, a
not
couple.
not a crazy amount, but much better than the cheese coming in and at every month. It was just like I remember that growing up, and like now it's even still I go into like moments where I'm just like eating something that's kosher, and somebody worked very hard for it to get from wherever it was before to Minnesota. So it's really something for you listeners that live in a big metro area with a lot of kosher restaurants. Like don't take it for granted. Like I know sometimes the service sucks and I know sometimes the food is too salty, but it's kosher food, man. Like how much better can it get that you're getting kosher food from a restaurant that you don't have to make?
Exactly. And you know what? As the universe turns, places like Trader Joe's and Costco have made the ability for a kosher keeper Jew anywhere in America to get kosher cheese and kosher meat. There's a massive company called Belgioso Cheese, which makes, paleo cheese. They are now fully kosher certified and available anywhere in the country. And if you would have told me as a kid, I can go to any grocery store and get kosher cheese, I'd be like, what are you talking about? Because you had to wait for the cheese shipments. But now you can go any store in America and you can get fresh mozzarella with a big old OU. That's important and that's special. That's not just for us, by the way. That's happens to be we get to, get some kosher out of it, but it's for the broader community that I think understands that when you have a kosher product, it's also an outside overseeing agency. It's an outside oversight agency, and that is really what sparks those demographics. It's not the kosher keepers. It's
Right.
the kosher symbol lookers,
Right.
and we get to reap those benefits.
Right. Right. And going off of that point, I think I would say the kosher keepers are so cognizant of every little like ingredient on every single piece or whatever of food. It's amazing. Like I I was out shopping with my roommates the other day and they were at Costco and they don't keep kosher, but they were like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna buy some mini hot dogs for the Super Bowl." I'm like, "Oh great, I can't eat them. They probably have like ham in them, whatever." Turns out they're glatt kosher hot
Glatt
dogs
kosher,
from,
yeah, that's right.
and they had no idea. They just didn't know that a OU glatt symbol was even a thing. Like it's amazing how much attention to detail you have to have when you keep kosher. Because there could be, and I think I've seen this, there could be some symbols that look like that have an OU that say OU, but like they might actually not be kosher, which is kind of crazy to think about.
It's hard to like you can symbols can get confusing, but really, how good did your roommates feel when they found out
Uh,
they had picked the right
oh
product? They were
yeah.
like, "Yes,
They were
yes!"
they
Right?
were
Blew their mind.
I was more ecstatic than them, but they were just like shocked. They're like, and they obviously know I keep kosher, but
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, but they
I,
were
di-
not
I
expecting to service you, and they were
r-
like, "We happen to actually have bought the by accident, they took care of you." That's how
exactly,
special it is.
exactly, and the fact that it was also glock kosher too is just
Mhm.
like another level of wow for sure.
Extra special.
So let's get into trippin' kosher. So C Dub, I have a little hunch that you started um this YouTube channel because, again, like you mentioned, the lack of kosher restaurants in Minnesota. You want to show everybody that you can be a kosher keeping Jew anywhere in the United States, not named New York, but also in New York. What really inspired you? Like, what was the needle mover in getting Tripping Kosher started?
Well, I spent some time. I've always wanted to be some sort of like Mr. Rogers of kosher because we grew up understanding how different and special it was to be part of a kosher community.
Mhm.
And we wanted to highlight that and tell that. So I spent some time in consumer packaged good game and I ran a catering company and I did a bunch of other things so that I could educate myself and know almost enough to sound like I know what I'm talking about on camera.
Right.
And I met a television producer and I was pitching him for years. And I'm kind of a certain kind of fool. So he was like, nah, no way. And then I convinced him to follow me at a kosher trade show. And we were able to highlight that there's this incredible story for an incredible audience. It's not about just the kosher food, it's about the kosher lifestyle behind it. It's about the community behind it. And because we have that instance of growing up in such a small kosher keeping community, we understand how special it is and how unique it is to the rest of the world. There's, only 16 million Jews in the world. There's 8 million in Israel and then 8 million everywhere else. How many of those actually keep kosher? Maybe 20% of them. Like that's what I'm saying. It's not even like all Jews keep kosher. It's not. We're a minority of a minority, but we all have the same stories. We all
Mhm.
eat the same very specific, shopping habits. We all, so we just wanted to highlight how special it was to go somewhere else and just have a really unique kosher product. Find a
Right.
place that was the only place making something kosher, Like my favorite dim sum place in the country, there are not a lot of kosher dim sum places, is in North Miami Beach, Florida, being run by boat people who landed in Israel. So they're Vietnamese. They left Vietnam. Israel took them in the 60s, and there's a whole Vietnamese community in Israel,
Wow.
non-Jewish. They don't keep kosher.
What?
These people have the best kosher Chinese restaurant in Florida,
That,
and they've never cooked non-kosher professionally.
that's awesome. That's a great story.
Also, when they speak Hebrew, it like flips your mind because you're not really sure what's going on because they're straight Vietnamese, and then all of a sudden they shout at you like Israelis, and you're like, ah, what did I do? And it's a little scary, but like it's like your brain flips, but it's very cool. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I'm sure you have a lot of great stories. And I've been a follower of the show, I think, for 3 or 4 years now. I might have to check my math on that. But
Okay.
I
We'll take it.
wanna I wanna highlight. I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm a loyal, like one of the first followers, but I've seen your YouTube videos a lot. One video that I think we should highlight in this episode is the Al Basha grocery store. And for those of you who don't know about this grocery store, and I'll drop the link to it in the description. There's a grocery store in Tucson, Arizona, that is a halal and kosher food market. All right. So, C-Dub, why don't I mean you're gonna do a better job of explaining it than I can, but tell us about this store. What was your initial reaction going into it, and how'd you find out about it?
So that's the exact kind of thing that we want to highlight. There's this lifestyle around kosher, and in Tucson, Arizona, there are really not a lot of kosher keepers, like legit a handful, like 30 or 40. But what happened is there's this wonderful lady, and she has this store, this like Arabic bodega that's called Al Basha. And she recognized that certain people were coming in for Israeli Middle Eastern ingredients that also, are familiar to the kosher Jew and to, the halal keeping, Middle Eastern Arab, whatever. We have so many similarities that she said, why not just have everything under one roof? So she went ahead and she, on her own initiative, it's not like she was contacted by a kosher keeping agencies or anything and said, hey, start stocking stuff. She recognized the value of that the convergence of our lifestyles. Like we're all religious to a certain point. We all have the same, fear of the same God. We're all cousins. And our food is fairly similar when it comes from a certain region, like the Levant. So she took that chance and she put out a whole like a kosher aisle, and she started carrying all these kosher products. And like the community was driving by and they're like, that store says kosher and halal. What is going on? And everybody started going in there, and it became like a central hub of this, relationship kind of space, right? We're all from that kind of warm community, and we all understand each other. And we saw a little article about it. It was like mid-corona too. So we saw a little article about it published by some Lubavitch newspaper somewhere, and we thought that was going to be an incredible story. So like 2 days later, we got on a plane, flew down, and it was exactly what we were expecting. It was warmth, it was love, it was community, and it's because there are a lot of similarities. We are well related. You know what I mean? The halal and kosher are having to skip away from each other.
Yes, yes. And I think a lot of people don't know that halal, or sorry, kosher, I think all kosher meat is considered halal,
It can be tricky
but not for the most
for the
part.
most part.
For the
Yeah,
most
for the
part.
most part.
But it like you said, it's so similar how a halal, and I'm not an expert on this, but how halal meat is prepared in a very similar way and holds similar to standards to kosher, right? And I think this is just a phenomenal opportunity for the Jewish and Muslim communities to come together as one in America. Like I feel like there's just not enough of these stories that you hear about. Like you hear about this in Israel, right? Because obviously Muslims and Jews, obviously we're fighting, but there are a lot of communities that have coexistence. But in America, there's none of this. So this is just amazing, amazing, amazing.
So I had a company that made kosher bacon for a long time. It was called Bacon because we made it out of lamb. So not all halal will eat kosher, but like if you're of a certain
Okay.
standard of halal keeping and you don't have halal availability, kosher can most of the time for that level of halal keeping can stand in. Generally, kosher, keepers don't eat halal because there's a couple different things involved, but it's all about respecting the animal and respecting the life of the animal and the way we slaughter, which is very specific to kosher meats. And when I was selling my kosher bacon, I was baking for everybody. So I had huge halal clients, and I had big
Okay.
Jewish clients. And then I had, like I had one, we had a bar in DC, a restaurant in DC that was owned by Jordanians, and they didn't want to have pork in their restaurant. So we were supplying them with, with the kosher bacon. And everybody was excited to try it. You know what I mean? Like a forbidden fruit for not just the Jews, but also the Muslims. It was great.
Why don't you talk about the difficulty level it is to run a kosher restaurant? I mean, you have to consider the mashgiach, the sourcing of the meat, making sure that everything is up to standard. I mean, it's so difficult to maintain the upkeep of a kosher restaurant, which is why I really appreciate people opening kosher restaurants. Why don't you talk about what it's like to have your own kosher restaurant and what the upkeep of that is like?
Well, there's a couple certain things that are necessary when having a kosher restaurant right away. So if you're a meat-based kosher restaurant, it means you're not going to have any dairy because milk and meat don't mix. It also means that you have to have an overseer from an oversight agency, an outside oversight agency, who's going to give you the stamp to make sure everything inside the store is fully kosher. That's a full-time employee. So that costs as much as a full-time employee. Sometimes you get what's called a mashgiach chef, where the guy cooking the food is also the guy overseeing. It'll never be the owner because that's against the standards of trust and oversight, right? I can't be my own kosher supervisor, even though you trust me, because, that can complicate things. Also, we're not open on Shabbos. So we don't roll on Shabbos, if you know what I mean. So Friday night to Saturday night, you're losing one of your busiest days of the week, and you have to offset that. And then you also have all the Jewish holidays, and there are a good number of them. Passover is going to be 2 weeks off where you're not open, and you have to offset that. So, sourcing wise, thank God we live in America, and there's really, really wonderful supply chains that exist for a kosher consumer and a kosher restaurateur. But really, it comes out also small things like bugs are not kosher. So when you go to a kosher certified place, every single piece of lettuce and or veg is going to be washed and checked to make sure that they have no bugs. That is a very long and arduous process that usually, that the mashgiach has to do. There are a lot of little steps. Um, I will, and Jewish clients.
Oh my God.
Eh,
Oh,
eh,
Jewish clients.
eh, the food is
Oh,
terrible in
oh
such
my
small
God.
portions.
Oh my. Don't even get it. I don't think we want to go down this path, but we're going to do it anyways. The amount of chutzpah that goes on at a kosher restaurant is off the charts. It's like,
We are an opinionated group. So I'm not here to bash anybody, and I love it all. I love it all. I mean, part of the things that we've always done with Tripping Kosher is 100% positivity. Like we have some rules. I'll never say the word "I" unless I'm telling a personal story because we're not there to talk about me. I'm not a social media king influencer. No, I'm here doing short form documentary about kosher restauranting. So we don't say "I." We always focus on the positive. So we will never eat something and be like, "Bleh," right? There are instances where we're talking more about being in the city and less about the food on the plates.
right.
That means it's the only kosher place for 1,000 miles, and we're here to highlight it. But we focus. We're positive. It's all about the positivity and the excitement of being able to lead this lifestyle and still, enjoy foods from every kind of culture. Peruvian cuisine. There's places that have that. There's kosher Mexican. There's kosher Chinese, kosher Japanese, kosher Thai, kosher Brazilian, whatever kind of restaurant you really are looking for. Jews have been there and Jews currently live there, and there are cuisine based out of that. So that whole kind of that hodgepodge, that melting pot of sorts, we are the wandering people. We've eaten a lot of different kinds
We
of foods.
have. And I think your message is, first of all, it's amazing that you are trying to get the positives out of a restaurant as opposed to being a quote unquote like food critique, right? You're not here to tell anybody like, oh, this dish was like a 6.5 out of 10. Like maybe you shouldn't go for it. No, the point of Tripping Kosher is that he's promoting the restaurants so that people will go there and eat their food and continue the kosher lifestyle, right? I feel like it's so easy to get bogged down in the details of the negatives of a kosher restaurant. Like, for example, I'm guilty of this. Like, I was literally just asking him questions about the chutzpah of a kosher restaurant. No, C-Dub is so focused on the positivity of a kosher restaurant. And that's something that's extremely difficult to do. And I know many of you have attended a kosher restaurant before and eaten there. And, it might not be the most pleasant experience, but at the very end of the day, you're getting kosher food and you're continuing the kosher lifestyle. And C-Dub has done an amazing, amazing job of that.
That's always been our goal, is to just be positive about it all. There's who am I to like be negative? Like, what do I know? Do I know? No, and everybody, they like to say, oh, your reviews are great. And we don't call them reviews. I think we would call them highlights, because we're not reviewing anything. We're telling you why this dish tastes delicious, right? Why does this dish, what's different about this dish? Why this dish happens in the kosher community. And we love that. And the truth is, the modern state of dining out kosher in America, when you go to the major metropolises, especially, has really starting to respect itself, and kind of, it used to be, it's the only place, you got to do what you got to do. And we all grew up with that, like, whatever, it's, at least you have kosher food. But now we get to say, you have kosher food, yay.
Speaking of, expanding kosher restaurants in America and around the world, let's talk about schmoozing and cruising for a second. And for the record, I did not know about this until I connected with C-Dub a couple weeks ago. I already had the name for schmoozing time. So before you accuse me of stealing the name schmoozing, please reconsider. Anyway, C-Dub, let's talk about schmoozing and cruising. What is schmoozing and cruising?
Yeah, we do not. It's okay. We do not own the word schmoozing. It just shows how it just shows a common nomenclature. Like, we all know the word schmoozing. It's an American word, also, schmoozing. It means to have like that quick chat, that like hangout chat.
Yes, sir.
And when we were developing the show, the streaming platform that it's on wanted to have some sort of relevant kind of Jewishy term. So schmoozing was the way to go. And what it is really a 30-minute format of exploring kosher in America. So it's called Schmoozing and Cruising, a trip through kosher Americana, which harkens back to our other project. But it is on a wonderful platform called Highflix. And Highflix is a culturally Jewish platform. So it's not like religious, not this and that. They just have all the culturally Jewish content. They have a lot of Israeli content. They own the rights to shtisel, that kind of thing. And they wanted to launch original programming, and they found our show. And so we developed a show with them. And the first season is all about, like, the first one episode is about kosher cafes in America. So we go to one in Miami that's kind of like a munch house, and then we go to a farm to table one in New York, and then we go to like a Russian tea house, and all over the country, to show that these things exist. Great examples of kosher cafes. And then we have a pizza episode, and we explore different types of pizza that also happen to be kosher. Like, there's a kosher New York slice, you know what I mean? That exists. There's a kosher Neapolitan that exists. One episode is about kosher barbecue in America, and barbecue is hella biblical anyways. And barbecue in America comes from Jews in the early part of the century,
Right.
cooking the cheap cuts, like the briskets. Like, if you ever had pastrami, that's barbecue. Okay.
Yep.
Texas beef barbecue comes from like the Jews smoking briskets. Like, this is a real fact. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're just trying to highlight how different and how similar our culture is. Right? You come from an Egyptian, what's Kabi?
Syrian Lebanese.
Syrian Lebanese. I will tell you that anytime I walked into your grandmother's house, it smelled incredible.
Thank you.
I can tell you that, right? So there's all this great food that I didn't grow up with. I'm like a white Jewish, third generation, whatever. But like, we have this diaspora thing where everybody came from different parts of the world, and we got to share the food, Great food. And that's just what we're trying to do.
Phenomenal. Again, phenomenal. This is the king of kosher food right here, guys. And my immediate thought, you are the king of kosher food. My immediate thought is like, is this, and I obviously have not seen Schmoozing and Cruising, but would you say this is like comparable to kind of diners, drive-ins, and dives for like Food Network? Like what would you say like a show comp is, just so I can get a picture of
That's
it?
exactly the what we did is we took a little bit of diners and drives and a whole lot of somebody feed Phil. So these great positive inspirations, a little bit of, Maddie Matheson, if you know who that is, but some of these great like inspirations, like great kind of like what we felt was inspirational television about kosher food in America or just kosher food in general. And just these guys, I mean, yeah, that's if you wanna look for a comp, a little bit of Phil, a little bit of Schmoozing and Cruising, a little bit of Maddie Matheson thrown in. Like, those are big influences of ours. Um, and season 2, we're filming season 2 tomorrow, actually.
Ooh, okay.
So
So
very excited.
I'm
I'm going to
there.
Florida tomorrow.
There we go. There we go. That's a good place. That's a good place to start.
Well, we're going to small communities, not we're going off the beaten path because there's a lot of kosher in Florida because Jews in Florida. We're going to a place in Ormond Beach, which is next to Daytona, where there's one little place. And then the next day we go to Key West, where there's one little shack run by an Israeli woman. And then we do some Florida stuff. But like these are what we want to highlight. The little corner pockets of our corner pocket
That
universe.
that is great. And I think going forward, what is, I guess, the goal for Schmoozing and Cruising and Tripping Kosher? What's your ultimate goal? What big things you have in store?
So the goal was to always kind of build and develop this idea, this platform that there is an audience. There are people who keep kosher that do watch television. How many kosher keepers have Netflix? This is real. And we always wanted to make, some for us, by us type content, but made sure that it was totally understood by somebody who wasn't a kosher keeper. Like if you're kosher curious, you could find our stuff. We love that. But if you have no idea what kosher is and you come across our content, it's great content, just happens to be about kosher. So our goal is to kind of highlight that marketplace, which in America is a $20 billion marketplace.
Wow.
The amount of goods sold with kosher symbols in America is a $20 billion marketplace.
Wow.
60% of any grocery store you will walk into in America is kosher certified. Like all your pastas are going to have a kosher symbol. Most of your candies are going to have kosher symbols. Pringles. Okay, Pringles are kosher, guys. Hellman's mayo is kosher. All any like all Hershey's candy bars. So these are modern American staples that are also fully kosher, and that's really what we want to highlight. We also want to tap into that marketplace, as a further study. So, Schmoozing and Cruising eventually will be ported to Amazon and will be ported to Netflix and will be ported to all the other streaming channels. And we just want to have, 1,000 different streams on 1,000 different platforms, just so everybody can get a chance to kind of enjoy and indulge in just some very fine storytelling about our tiny pocket
That
universe.
is a great outlook right there from the man who knows everything about the kosher food industry. So, final question here for you, Sita, before we wrap up. Is there an opportunity for kosher food to succeed on TikTok? I know you're kind of in the middle with the um kind of longer 30 minutes to 10 to 30 minute episodes, but what are your thoughts on the kosher food side of TikTok? And I'm an avid TikTok user. I've seen a lot of kosher food on there. What are your thoughts on that?
So what we were really trying to establish is a format of storytelling and television quality that doesn't exist for the kosher consumer.
Right,
TikTok is not that. Instagram is not that.
right.
But if you pay attention in the next couple of weeks, our TikTok is going to be released and will blow up because it's just a format of all the other, it's just a way to move content and share ideas. And there's a lot going on TikTok for kosher. It's all homemade, it's mostly home brewed, but the influencer scene in kosher is incredibly strong. And there are a lot of cookbook author influencers, not a lot of television creators like us. So we just wanted to establish the standard of content. Like we pay for our food, we pay for our travel, we pay for the production. We call the restaurants, they don't call us. Our goal is to establish what it is to be like a kosher food network. And we will be utilizing TikTok soon. It's there, it's all set up, and we have hundreds of pieces of content that are ready to drop on it. We've actually filmed documentaries outside of food. We've snuck a couple into Tripping Kosher, but our goal is to really show off the lifestyle and culture part also. So, whether it's musicians or whether it's art or whether it's, anything else that would involve being part of a kosher lifestyle, we would like to document it. And TikTok's big. I am too old for that shiz. So I don't really involve myself too much on it. Scatterologically, it's too fast, too quick. I like to, think about what I'm looking at and understand what I'm watching and not just enjoy 4 seconds. So, TikTok, it is going to blow up. And kosher is, as far as it goes, I think kosher as far as social media platforms go, TikTok's the strongest one for kosher. Like if you look kosher on TikTok, big time. Anytime somebody goes to a kosher restaurant, they're going to put it on TikTok. Anytime somebody cooks a kosher meal, they're going to put it on TikTok. So that exists. That's big.
Yes, yes. And I think I find myself sucked into the addictive algorithm of TikTok showing me these perfectly curated, juicy kosher briskets. And I'm like, oh my God, why can I not be eating this right now? So I definitely agree with you that kosher food has a life on TikTok. And obviously there's a generational gap of how people consume content, and I think you're kind of hitting that on the nail, and you're gonna do a phenomenal job once you guys reach TikTok in a couple of weeks. I think your image is going to go pair so well with not only maybe the older generations that like kosher food, but I think people like me that are in their 20s that want kosher food, they're gonna love that stuff. Like, let's be real here.
Yeah, our goal is to drive the traffic to our organic base of a library. We have almost 10 years of content that we have done very little to very little to kind of even push. We just want it to be organic and natural.
Love that.
Like we won't tell you to hit the smash button
Right.
because we hope you just like the content and subscribe. Like we're not gonna do any of that, but we're gonna use TikTok to drive you to all the other platforms so that you can eventually click your way through
Right.
and subscribe. But we're going to do that based on the quality of our storytelling and production. And we're very happy to do it. It is not an easy thing to do. Each one of those videos is like 20 hours worth of post-production work. There's a lot of work that goes into it. We have a new one every week. Like we have enough for 100 seasons, baby. Like we have so much stuff filmed. And we're just for that our goal is to just continuously just be the standard and format of content and storytelling for kosher and beyond.
That's awesome. Listen, guys, C Dub isn't going to tell you to hit the subscribe button, but I'm going to heavily advocate that you go follow Trippin' Kosher on YouTube. Same thing on Instagram, correct?
Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. There's a WhatsApp channel. There's an email list. It will be if you follow it on. You can follow it on TikTok. There's
Okay.
just no content there
Okay.
yet.
So let's make sure we all follow Tripping Kosher on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, pretty much every social media platform. And really make sure after this episode, you go take a look at Tripping Kosher's YouTube channel. You're going to find yourself sucked in for hours and hours of kosher food content. It is amazing. And this is something, if you're still a college student like me or in high school, this is something that you could use as bribery to tell your parents to make. Just putting it out there. So go take a look at this amazing kosher food content. We really want to thank C Dub for coming on the show. Again, make sure, in addition to following Tripping Kosher, we want to make sure we're following Schmoozing Time on. I'm gonna, unlike C Dub, I'm gonna tell you to hit that smash button, because this is great content, guys. Let's keep blowing it up. Until next time, keep schmoozing.